and welcome to the Mash In, your North Texas beer podcast, sponsored by Harvest Seasonal Kitchen in downtown McKinney. I'm Toby.
I'm Bob.
And we're here today to talk to the folks behind Manhattan Brewing Company. Hello.
Hi.
How are you guys doing today?
We're doing well.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So first off, maybe just introduce yourselves and start from there.
Yeah, so I'm Misty Sanford, and then my husband Carl, and
and there's the third leg of the stool is downstairs making beer right now.
Awesome.
That's Jeremy. So
yep. He's not a real chatty guy, so he doesn't usually join these, but then he's also quite busy today. So
Cool.
2-year-old brewery called Manhattan Project Beer Company.
So how did you guys get started? What led you to the path of deciding to open your own brewery?
It was probably a pretty typical story where it was a passion turned obsession with craft beer, and then we just started making our own beer. But really the first beer we ever did was our wedding beer. Carl and I got engaged, and at that time we were both working fairly corporate jobs, so we were traveling quite a bit for work. He was joining me at the tail end of trips, and this was back before good beer could come into the state of Texas, so you had to leave Texas to taste good beer. Like 10 years ago. So we were all over the place drinking beer and traveling the world in some cases. And then when he proposed, we decided that we wanted to have a beer instead of champagne for the toast and make it more focused around beer rather than wine, because we were so obsessed with beer at the time. So we designed that beer for the first time, and it's called Inception now, and it's still in our portfolio today. And that got it all started. You can add a little to it.
Yeah. So we knew Jeremy because both Misty and I had worked with Jeremy's wife, and he had been homebrewing for a few years, and maybe like 4 or 5 years at the time. And so when we were like, hey man, would you is there any way we can twist your arm and get you to make a beer for our wedding? He was like, yeah, he got all excited because it was kind of a hobby that
what that's like.
I know exactly.
His wife at the time wasn't really into beer, and so he was
She still drank Miller Lite, I think.
Yeah, she was drinking Miller Lite straight out of the bottle.
Yeah, refusing to taste craft. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was fun. Yeah, and then so basically from there we started going these amateur festivals like Brew Riot.
After the wedding beer, we're like, wow, we make a good team. And so, that's when we were like, let's do some more. And then that's when we started entering the amateur festivals.
Yeah. So, and have you guys been to any of those before? Like the amateur,
no,
Blue Bonnet, or?
We haven't, yeah.
They're so much fun.
Working on the weekend,
we're still new at this.
What's so great about it, everyone there is making 5-gallon batches, right?
Sure.
And they could care less whether somebody's going to buy their beer or not, right? So they'll make anything. And it was had a coffee pale ale for the first time at a home brew, which you still don't see those, but a coffee pale ale, if it's done right, is amazing.
The color was awful, but it tasted good.
It kind of looked like dishwater, but it was delicious.
Perfect.
But so
they get super crazy, and it's almost inspirational now at this point, because you can go and you're like, oh, they don't have to worry about selling it like Carl said, but anyway.
Yeah, they're making it. It's getting drunk pretty fast. Probably by the time the festival's over with.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Oh yes, it's a mess.
So did you guys homebrew at all, or is it just you had the wedding, talked to Jeremy, and we're like, this is what we're doing?
No, Jeremy wants me to go nowhere near any of this. I'm the creative one. Glasses are shaking big. I'm the creative one. So I live very much in the gray.
Okay.
So as a brewer that should live in the black and white, he's like, don't come near this.
Yeah.
I think I helped make a beer.
So when I say amateur, we did that for a while.
Okay.
Basically these kind of homebrew festivals where we're just showing up with 4 or 5 different 5-gallon kegs, like the corny kegs, and serving the public, and and I think that's really where we started to get a lot of really positive feedback from people that were drinking our stuff. We win a lot of first contest we entered, we won gold medal for our IPA, which IPA is, if you've done the contest, it's the most competitive category. So I think we're up against 80 different beers. So
and that's Half-Life now.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It used to be called Little Boy, but you
kind of grow up every now and then.
But TBC doesn't like the idea of children and labels, and then also you add the fact that you don't really want a grown man to walk to a bar and order a little boy.
I feel you. That's
there are laws against that.
So we did learn, like, we named most of our beers. Well, all of our beers had names when we were amateurs, and some of them have had to shift a little bit because we were either way too nerdy, and like, you know, Edgar Singer was the name of one beer, like.
Edgar Singer, Belgian Brown.
People can't.
Rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah.
Easy one to order.
Yeah. So.
That's funny. So you won gold medal at Blue Bonnet Festival for your IPA.
This one was
Brew Riot.
Yeah. So we.
We're at
Brew Riot. So we won. I think we entered a total of seven between 7 and 9 amateur competitions, and we placed in all of them, several medals, and then that's when people started approaching us asking if they could invest, and so we're like, yeah, we might be onto something. So then I at that time I had my own business, so I had a marketing and branding strategy company, and Carl was wrapping up his job, and so we're like, let's start working on a business plan. So we actually spent about a year writing a business plan. Not really because we felt like it took a year, but because we had to get our heads wrapped around what we wanted to do with this concept and like get the three of us on the same page.
I learned why, like, because you've seen business plans, you've read business plans, and you read them, and you're like, man, there's no way like this information is actually going to help you run a business. You know what I mean? And so I didn't really understand it until I went through the process. And in order to create that document, you know, it may be a 20-page document, the business plan, but in order to create that, I mean, it's just hours and hours and hours of work, and contemplation, like, and just, you know, and it changed all of the time. Yeah, and you start talking about like, you know, what is going to be the culture of your company, you know, and what type of person do we want to invest? I mean, that was something that we had to think a lot about, because during the various cycles of where we were in the business plan, that changed drastically because we were newbies. So we started meeting investors. We're like, oh, they're saying $500,000 right now, but like, I don't want to be married to that person.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah. So yeah, then we had to kind of reset what our goals and our plans were. So yeah.
So what was the defining sort of, now that you look back on it and writing through that business plan, when did it all connect? When did you like, this is the culture of our company, this is what we want to say with our beer?
I think it still happens every day.
It does.
Yeah.
And we still have to do gut checks too. Before you guys got here, we were downstairs tasting a Goza that we're releasing this spring, and we haven't made it in probably about 2 years. And we're having a major gut check moment because we want to hit a deadline to hit the spring release, but it's not quite there, I don't think. So the aroma's off a little bit, so we're going to try some techniques to change that to see if we can make it work. But we have an agreement that the three of us have to unanimously agree that this beer, whatever we're releasing, is 100%, and we believe in it 100%, or it doesn't go to market.
So it's a 3-person tasting panel.
It is.
Yeah. We don't do majority decision on beer releases. It's unanimous. That's the only. I mean, everything else we just kind of negotiate through and say, okay, I'll give in on this one, and you know, whatever. If we don't 100% agree, but on the beer, it's got to be 100%. So.
And we actually have it written in our business agreement that it's always the three of us that decide what we move forward. So our investors can't influence us. Future employees, the three of us have to agree.
So do you guys have any sensory experience or training?
Jeremy does. Well,
Nothing formal, nothing like a Cicerone or.
But you know, so we've been the three of us have been doing this since 2011.
Yeah.
And so we've almost kind of developed our own methodology and our own, and I think I mean, obviously our palates differ a little bit,
right?
You know, preferences and things like that. But for the most part, we're all pretty in line with like the flavor profile that and this can go anywhere from, like, we're drinking Necessary Evil right now, anywhere from a Pilsner to an Imperial Stout. There's still certain aspects that we all think are, you know,
high carbonation, dryness. You're not going to get a ton of, even like our milkshake IPA is not going to be overly sweet. We keep that sweetness level down.
Yeah, so for the most part, like we definitely lean dry. We try to stay more in balance, so you won't see as much bitterness in our IPAs. You won't see won't see as much maltiness either in the IPAs, because that's more because of the sweetness thing. But
balanced correctly, you can get that mix, and that's not easy to do.
No,
it's not really.
Yeah, I kind of have this way that I describe it, and I say that to me it's like a roller coaster, like the drinking experience or the tasting experience, and that it starts when you're looking at it, you're smelling it, you're kind of going up, you're kind of anticipating it, and you take that first sip, and then there's the initial flavor, and then so it's not that a beer has to always have a ton of flavor, or has to have, or even the opposite, or either it has to be. But what you want is like a smooth transition between all the different phases, right? You don't. Sure. It's like if a roller coaster went up to the top and then just dropped you on the ground, it would obviously be a terrible roller coaster. And so when we come across that,
briefly, yeah.
When you come across that where you get like that really strong, say malty flavor up front, and then it just disappears and there's nothing. It just doesn't feel right. It's something. So we work a lot on that, on trying to. That's usually what we're talking about in beers. Is we're saying, hey, it's got a little extra something at the end that we don't like, or it's missing something in the middle that needs to be added.
Like the beer right now, there's this kind of odd tanginess to me that I'm tasting right now. But I just had lunch, so it's like, well, when we wrap up this and before I leave, I'm gonna taste it again and let the palate settle down for a little bit, but to back
and
to
it is a goza, so it is supposed to.
It is supposed to be tangy, but
the tang was weird.
It's more like a vinegar. It was more like a vinegar tang. But anyways, but to go back to your original question, I think one of the things that we figured out during the business plan was that we're not going to compromise at all with the beer. And that is something that we have truly had. We have to make concessions to live by that. So we don't release beer quickly. So if we don't get where we want with the goza, then we may miss the whole season. And that's something that we're willing to do, because we don't want a beer that's mediocre or just like, okay, that's good, to hit the market and that to become our reputation. We'd rather have 12 beers that are spot on and delicious every single time than to have 8 that are delicious and 4 that are so-so.
So you have the 3 you guys, and you're sitting down, and it went from brewing your wedding beer, having fun, doing 5-gallon batches, and now you're sitting down with a contract between the 3 of you. How's balancing that? Let alone, the beers and whatnot. How's balancing like keeping your friendship and like having this business, or it's just
I'm not gonna lie. Like during those contract phases and the business plan, that wasn't easy. That was hard to try to get to that point. But I mean, that's why we spent so much time there, was because we had to make sure we could get through that together and not necessarily make concessions with each other then, so that we could run a really good business. Then we filed the contract away. Like Carl's favorite saying is like, you write the contract to death, and then so that you never have to look at it again.
If you ever have to pull that contract back out, you're in trouble.
It needs to stay up, go up, and just do our thing.
And our roles have definitely kind of shifted a bit. I think probably my roles probably changed most significantly from what we initially planned, but we're fine with it because that's what's happening organically and that's where it needs to be. But we spent so much time trying to figure that out beforehand.
It's an evolutionary process.
So
Misty's picked up more of the sales aspect than we originally
distribution
thought.
and
so
launching, like figuring out what's next.
So it's interesting because we work with a distributor with Full Clip here in North Texas, and so they handle a lot of the logistics about trucks and things like that, but I mean, they're not perfect and they have a lot of other brands they rep, and so Misty ends up having to get, if we want to make sure our customer gets, our end customer, right, the bar, the restaurant, gets what they want when they ask for it, and so it takes some encouragement or some hand-holding sometimes. So because we had originally, that was one of the things, we had originally said, okay, well, it's the 3 of us, and these are kind of where our skill sets lie, and then we always assumed that we were going to pick up almost like a 4th, partner that would kind of handle the sales thing, because none of us really had a true sales background.
Or a desire.
To
be honest.
But it's funny that
we're makers. We don't like to sell it.
We actually talked to a few people that we thought would be good for the job and be interested, and turns out really good salespeople are just coin operated. And like when you say, hey, do you want to like join us and not take a salary for a while and like, you know, take a big risk? And they're like, so do I get commission? And you're like, no. Like, I mean, they're like, I don't know how this works, you know? And so it was just, you know, we kind of realized it's like, yeah, that there are certain things, certain qualities in a founder of a business and then other qualities in employees. And some people like it. They like the paycheck. Some people, you know, like to own something and build value, and so just adapt as we go. So,
sure. So, speaking of like distributors and contract, what you guys have the investor now? You get your contract. You're ready to get rolling. What made you decide to contract brewer to place for a little bit? You know, what kind of led you guys to that path, and how has it worked out or not worked out?
Yeah, so Carl and I were just talking about it Carl and I like to play this game, like, okay, if you had to choose to do whatever all over again, would you do, what path, what would you change? You know, like, we play.
I'm always running hypotheticals and like thought experiments. It's like, just probably like,
there's got to be some engineering.
There is. Like, I mean, his question this morning was ridiculous. I was getting ready to take our son to school, and he's like, "What number do you consider FU money?" And I'm like, it's like, how much money do you need in your bank account so that you can just say to everything out there? I'm like, that's Carl.
Yeah, this question just popped into my head. Like, you hear people talk about it, go, oh, that guy's got, you know, FU money, he can do. And I'm like, how much is
How much is
money?
that? Yeah, to one person. It varies, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and we're pretty, we don't need a whole lot, so our number was pretty low. But
the FU number was lower than you expected?
Yeah.
I think mine would be too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm right there with you.
So anyways, Carl was really, and we went full circle probably a couple times. Like, you were really set on the idea of just getting a little space, getting the beer to market, a very small amount of beer to market, testing the market, getting some feedback before we jump into a big production brewery. But then at the same time, we're like, okay, then this is just a really freaking expensive hobby.
Right.
So then we started looking at the numbers like, okay, where does it make financial sense to go as far as like equipment size, lease expense, warehouse size. And then for a while, we landed on the idea of, you know, just doing one of these. I mean, no, this one's massive.
Pretty big.
Yeah, but we were in a 30-barrel brew house, you know, $10,000 a month lease, whatever it may be. And then that was when we started talking with investors and banks. And when you don't have brewery experience, banks don't want to talk to you. We got a whole lot of, I don't think they even were returning emails.
Oh, they were nice. They were like, yeah, you guys, this is great. Like, so as soon as you have 24 months of documented financial statements, we'd love to work with you.
Yeah. And then it was the investors, like we were talking about, where they were ready to give us a ton of money, but we were not comfortable with them. So we decided to pull back, pause. We're like, there's got to be a loophole. There has to be something that can bridge this huge barrier to entry so that we can just get our beer out there. And then that's when, I don't remember who found it in TABC law, the idea of alternating proprietorship.
I think we had kind of heard about it, and we had actually, at the time, so this would have been like in 2016, 2015, late 2015?
2015.
I mean, everyone around here was so, like the breweries were so busy, and they were all brand new. They were still trying to figure out which way was up and like how to get beer out the door. And nobody really had kind of the time or the capacity to kind of mess around with a couple people that wanted to
yeah, so do you know what AP is?
No, was it similar to contract?
Sort of. So
it's just a variant.
Yeah, so that's what we did with Bitter Sisters. So we owned our own TBC license, our own, all of our own licensing, our own insurance, everything, and then we took over their space for an allotted time per week to make our beer. So we paid them a fee, and that's why it's called alternating proprietorship.
Oh, okay.
We paid,
and yeah, there's alternating proprietorship, and then there's contract, and really pure contract is you pay the brewery and then they make your beer. Period.
You give them the recipe.
And then pure AP is like you're just borrowing the equipment essentially, right? And usually there's some mix in between. Obviously, if two breweries are working in the same space at the same time, it's like, hey man, I'll clean your tank this weekend if you'll help me brew tomorrow, or you know what I mean. So the TABC and everybody's fine with that as long they just want to make sure they're getting paid their tax money.
Right, of course.
Yeah,
so they just want to know who to throw in jail if you don't pay your taxes.
But we had to navigate it a bit because we were one of the very early AP groups to go through. So anyway, so we did that, and literally it was the difference between, we were looking at $3 million to start out of the gates with our own production facility, or $150,000 that we could bootstrap and start AP. So we did that. We got almost a year of sales under our belt, and then all of a sudden all the banks wanted to talk to us, and we had a whole different group of investors. And every time someone tasted the beer, we would be getting unsolicited emails and phone calls asking if they could invest.
Be careful what you ask for.
Right. So funded that first year yourselves, essentially, and then just kind of had some success. Obviously, brought you to a whole new level, and you were able to pick between some different investors. Pretty good problem.
And then pick between banks too. We land on a couple banks that we really like, and we have like friendships with them, with our bankers now, which is nice. So we closed on our property, which is in West Dallas, a year ago. We've been fighting with the wonderful city of Dallas for
a loving fight, a caring fight.
No. A litigious fight.
A litigious claws out fight.
Yeah, but we're getting there. So we'll be open in June, July.
So wow, so you get the property, you close on it. In your mind, you're thinking we're gonna start producing beer out of here in
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, we thought we'd be open by last summer.
Have you guys gotten? What's the outlook look like now? Not sure.
So right now we're at the final stages of the plan review and should be getting a permit like in the next few weeks, and then after that, I mean, the construction timeline's pretty quick. It's 5-6 months. So
we bought a 10,000 square foot warehouse with empty surrounding lots that we're platting as one. So we'll have beer garden, parking, which is much needed, and we're 1 mile from downtown Dallas.
Awesome. Yeah, I was looking at the map on your website. Yeah. So how much property is that?
3/4 of an acre.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's like a little over 33,000 square feet of.
It's a pretty good size space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the warehouse itself is 10,000, and then the rest will be parking and beer garden and
green space.
Everything,
Yeah. So, and the beauty and the benefit, when we first launched, I was really anxious about the idea of not having a tap room, because in my mind, and we didn't have package, we only had kegs. And in my mind, being the marketing and branding person, I can control that experience when you come to the tap room, and I can control the packaging experience, which is, the packaging is super important to me. But when I'm only in kegs, consumers don't actually see what a physical keg looks like, and they all look the same.
Yeah.
So that I was nervous about that, but then I very quickly realized, we all realized, how unimportant the tap room is when you have a really good product, and you can find other ways to touch your customers. That it doesn't have to be something that's face to face in a tap room, day in and day out. There's, so essentially every restaurant and bar in town became our tap room.
Well, go ahead. I was gonna say, there's part of me that says, hey, man, we could have grown this so much bigger and faster and this and that. But at the same time, it's like, we haven't been without our hiccups in this whole process. And had some issues with our first distributor. And I mean, had we been at a very high production level at the time, it would have caused us some serious problems. But we were able to weather it a lot easier because we didn't have big commitments. We didn't have, big rent and bills and things like that. So it was almost like every step of this way has almost been like a prototyping, right? Like, so we've just been able to with kind of less on the line and just be able to do the things that we've been able to do it the way we want to, like, right? Like, had we started with a 30 barrel brew house and we started making beer and it wasn't where we thought it should be, it would be really hard, to dump it.
It was hard dumping our 150 gallons.
Right. To be fair,
it's like, man.
Yeah, when you take 12 hours and you get one barrel and you're like, I'm gonna dump this. It's so tough.
The only claim to fame is we had a guy working at Harvest from Russia. And where exactly is he from?
Philip is from Russia. Philippe.
He said that's some good Czech beer. And I said, dude,
that's what we were aiming for. Yeah, we weren't aiming for that.
You were saying vodka?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say he took it home and distilled it into vodka.
He wanted to take it home. I'm like, dude, take what you want before I dump it. It's going down the drain.
So I want to get back a little bit to, kind of spending what, year to 2 years, like you said, without a tap room.
Yeah, 2.5.
That's crazy. So obviously it seems like, that's a completely different way than I hear about most people kind of starting off. You get the brewery open and you don't want to start selling beer, however you can. You guys obviously doing contract brewing. Can't do that. So did you just immediately, you had to sign on with a distributor, or did you guys distribute yourselves for a little bit? Or?
We did, and it was very humbling. Because our son at the time was 1. Mm-hmm. So I would load up my SUV, my mom car, with kegs and him. And he had just started walking, so he'd carry the invoice, I'd carry the kegs.
Wow.
Delivering.
That's a good picture.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 days a week, we would be delivering kegs together. As Carl was fighting with the city, Jeremy was making beer, and so that left me and a baby.
Yeah, that was what's your son's name?
Edison.
Edison, you and Edison.
Yeah.
The delivery service. How long did that last?
3 or 4 months. Probably about 4 months.
Is it that long?
Yeah, November, December, January. We didn't sign until April. Started in November. Yeah, it was a very long period.
So when you guys were selling yourself, what was your approach to get on at the restaurant, essentially?
We honestly, and I did all of the early sales completely on my own, with Edison strapped to me because he was born.
She's not bitter about this at all.
No, he was actually a wonderful salesperson. It was so much easier to sell beer when he was strapped on me, because they're like, who's this sweet little mom bringing her baby? Like, I have to buy her beer.
Yeah.
But I really let the beer speak for itself. I told a little bit about the story, and it wasn't terribly hard. Actually, Half-Life, which I don't think we're drinking today, it was the very first hazy IPA in Texas. That was the hardest one to sell, which is now our top SKU by far.
All right, time out.
So yeah, sell us.
So what do you guys want to drink next? We've got Double Half-Life, which is hazy IPA. We have 10 nanoseconds. This is our milkshake. Black Matter's our coffee stout. Wise Monkeys, Belgian Golden Strong. Plutonium, our coconut porter, or Hoppenheimer, our West Coast IPA.
It's just all at once. No, so let's start with the beers. Are any of those the wedding beer?
No.
Okay, well, the Half-Life was formerly known as Little Boy.
Yeah, so
we're not legally allowed to order.
No. Well, so if you want to, I'm trying to influence. This is super limited, and you may never taste it again.
Well, let's start there. Let's do it. Tell us about this one.
So this is our milkshake IPA. There's actually lactose in it. Was this one done on a whim? This one was kind of. Sometimes Jeremy sneaks in some R&D just to keep himself excited, and he'll send home cans that say experimental and then a series of numbers, because he's an engineer and that's how he labels things. You know that.
Yeah. So Toby looks at him and says, "What does this mean?"
Yes.
Every recipe has a unique ID, like a base ID, so, and it started at 1, so whatever, and then any variations of that get versioned, and so any recipe, Jeremy can tell you, oh, this was recipe 23 version 7. On and it's all documented. It's insane.
I had to tell Bob, I was like, dude, you got to simplify this labeling process for it was -1 2 3 4 0 1 1 ready by A, dash A, because I changed this.
Yeah, so this and it was just something that we kind of did on a fluke. It was one of our anniversary IPAs. We launched 2 brand new IPAs for our anniversary, and this was one of them. I wasn't going to stay around more than 6 barrels, and then it was just super delicious. So we're like,
smells.
We need to keep it. And then, in usual form, I threw Jeremy a curveball a couple weeks ago. I'm like, hey, by the way, we're going to do 30 barrels now, just one time. We're going to package some of it. So
that is very good.
Thank you.
I'm an
yeah.
IPA guy. That's some good beer.
It is delicious. Yeah, it's really good.
Yes, it's got a little bit of vanilla in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What does that come from? The vanilla.
Actual vanilla.
That's actual vanilla extract.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
and actual lactose too.
the flavors, the aroma is amazing.
And there's not fruit in it. It tastes like there's fruit. That's all coming from the hops.
Wow. Can I ask which hops?
Yes, but I can't recall.
That's what I don't know. Jeremy's brewing. Jeremy.
I love that aroma.
Yeah. So we did decide, I talked Jeremy into it. This is usually how our relationship goes. I have to throw something out, and then he's like, hard no. Then I'll just keep leaking little things about it over and over because, and Bob, you're probably very familiar with this. And then you slowly warm up to the idea. He's like, yeah, we should do 30 barrels. I'm like, yes, we should.
My wife does the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Or even worse when you were saying the way you guys have those games and questions. My wife will ask me a question. I'll go off in this answer. 15 minutes later, she goes, Bob, it only needed a yes or a no.
Yes.
You don't need to talk so much.
I can empathize with her.
So between is this the most expensive beer to make that we have?
Yes. This is lactose and vanilla are unbelievably expensive.
Is Atomic Alliance, is this more than Atomic Alliance?
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the name Manhattan Project, it goes all the way back to, our home brewing days and our, doing amateur competitions. So, yeah, we were just making beer and we were Jeremy was filling out the form and they're like, well, we need a team name. It's like, what are we going to put here? And we'd had this idea and we'd never really thought about it for us. We just had, at some point, we were like in San Diego on a beer trip. We were like, man, Manhattan Project would be a really cool name for a brewery because it's it's scientific and there's all the science behind brewing and we're just a bunch of nerds and history buffs and we would really just nerd out on all that and so we would just sit around. It kind of became one of the things we would do when we sit around drinking. We'd be like, oh, be another good beer name, and we would just
somebody needs to do this someday.
Somebody out there somewhere needs to do this because it would be awesome. And so at the time we never really considered that we would be in that position because Misty said we were all had corporate jobs and and all that kind of stuff. But then when she started her own business and I left my company and it was like yeah, maybe we could and and we stuck with it, and I think it really works for us because we do have such different skill sets, and because I think this whole wedding is what kind of originally brought us together, as opposed to we weren't like a club of homebrewers who all just decided that they all. So I've brewed less than a dozen times in my life. Misty's, you've done it once?
Yeah, never again.
Yep. And so we had just happened to be these different interests and skill sets where Misty was, marketing, branding, people, advertising, all of that. And then, I had more of the experience on business and technology and management. And then, Jeremy, engineer. So he's actually, prior to this, he was an embedded software engineer. So basically program microchips. And so you can't, one of the projects he worked on was a microchip that controlled like either cruise control and they'd also do ones that controlled like airbags in cars. And it's like, so when you're like programming microchips to control airbags in cars, like you can't like make a little mistake here or there, right? Like it's gotta be, right. So like, I think, his personality type was perfect for that. So we kind of looked at it as sort of like a meeting of the minds that had come together to accomplish something that we thought was worth doing, and we thought that there was a niche in the market for it and that people would appreciate. So
Manhattan Project fits.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, I typically despise a theme, but I like to say this is kind of an elegant theme. It just makes some really cool brand awareness because you see Hoppenheimer and it's going to be ours, or you see 10 nanoseconds, which is 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. You're going to suspect it's ours. So it furthers that brand awareness even more than if there weren't some sort of overarching element tying it all together.
Do you guys get the same equal voting on all things marketing and brand and logo, or you get the final? I had a feeling it was kind of the line in the sand right there.
Yeah, it's more. I mean, for the most part,
in the beginning,
we kind of reach consensus on most things. I mean, because the way I look at it is like, hey, it's not about whether I'm right or you're right or whatever, and we're all pretty logical people and rational people. So usually, if we disagree about something, it's because we're working off of different sets of facts, you know. So it's like, hey, let me put my facts on the table, you put your facts on the table, and usually we come to the same conclusion. I mean, there's some times where we're like, well, if we do that, it's gonna hurt our reputation because of this, and then Misty's like, I disagree, and so, you know, we'll kind of go back and forth about it. But at the end of the day, it's like, if we can't come to agreement, it's like, hey, this is your area, like, you're ultimately responsible for it. If it doesn't work, it's on you. So you know, we kind of all do that. We cross over a little bit. For the most part, we have our responsibilities. We take care of them, and that's what we do.
Well balanced, just like your beers.
Yeah.
So what's your best-selling beer right now?
Right now, we're in this weird season. You know, Half-Life is always our bestseller, so it's always our top SKU, 100%. But then our Hoppenheimer is very close behind it, and then it's probably a tie between Wise Monkeys and Black Matter.
Cool. And describe those beers for us.
So Wise Monkeys is a Belgian Golden Strong.
Awesome.
10%, a bit of banana, clove, deliciousness. A seasonal, winter seasonal, and then Black Matter, which Carl's pouring now, is our coffee stout. And so you're going to get a lot of coffee notes from it, some chocolate, and so people go nuts for this beer. But part of that, I will admit, is scarcity. It's here for 2 months and it's gone. So that's the reason why it sells out before the end of the week.
Did you find that being more of a challenge, being new on the market, kind of not being able to supply so much, or did that just kind of guarantee your next one was going to be sold out if it was a good product?
Helped. Yeah. Honestly, it helped. And I will admit, because who knows who's actually watching this, but I'll admit that sometimes we build in false scarcity, you know, because it helps when people think they can't get it. Now, you know, for a long time we had scarcity.
You're gonna be fighting that one for a while. Like, no, I'm serious.
Yeah,
I'm serious. We really
are. No, but sometimes, so we did have scarcity for a long time with our drafts, our keg sales, because we didn't have access to this. Now we have scarcity with our package because we can only can so much beer. So we're canning plutonium today. And I took some pictures before we got started with this, and I'll post it, and then people will start calling stores tomorrow because they'll probably hit shelves on Monday, and they'll be gone before Friday. And then it's gone for a month. So,
so when we do,
it truly is scarcity.
When we do a batch, like let's say, what's 500 cases an average batch, just plus or minus?
Yeah, probably 500.
500 cases. That typically sits in our distributor's warehouse for less than 3 days. So I mean, it's like, you know, and then it's another 20-something days before we have another batch again. So
very good.
You're limited. It is fantastic.
I need a steak dinner right about
You
now.
do. What did I say it pairs well with? This one is this one steak? Ribeye.
Warm fire, ribeye.
There you go.
So we'll always have our core, which our core is Half-Life, Hoppenheimer, Plutonium, which is the coconut porter, and Necessary Evil. But then everything else is going to come in and out. And we'll be forced into that scarcity just because we only have so many tanks.
Right.
So we have to pick and choose what's going to be brewed. So Black Matter will most likely never be year round because we want to brew summer beers too.
Sure. But I'll tell you what, you know, we were kind of told, because we didn't really know, the retail world is a completely different world. You know, you're working with kind of more corporate structures, big grocery stores, you know, it's not like your local, you know, they're buying, you know, half of a pallet, a whole pallet. I mean, and they want, you know, they want that shelf to look perfect, and your beer goes right there, and you know, it can't.
You fight for shelf space.
Yeah, and so you know, we kind of had, like, we were a little bit nervous you know, we just kind of heard so many things about this, and then, you know, so we go in there and, like, you know, when we did our first can release, I mean, the cans were moving really fast because people had anticipated it. It had been 2 years, all this. And, you know, then there was empty spots on the shelves, and we're like, oh no, we're gonna, and they were like, don't worry, like, they're like, we sold so much of it, like, it should be out of stock. Like, don't worry about it. And so they hold those spots for us, or they, you know, just put a temporary SKU in there until we get back in stock.
And honestly, that's when
they've been really cool.
That's when our seasonals, like Black Matter and Wise Monkeys, they slide in when Half-Life goes out of stock. So we're still securing that shelf space.
So many stores you guys in now. I know
we have about 350 active accounts.
Wow.
And about a third of those are probably retail.
See, prior to this, when I heard we were doing this with you guys, I went to head over to Market Street.
Yeah.
And my cousin and I were having steak dinner and said, hey, we need to sample something.
Yes, so they're a tough one.
I bet they are. I mean, I think they might have had 2 or 3.
They didn't have any.
They didn't have much.
No, they and it's because they're actually having a meeting about it, probably right now. It's today.
Wow.
And it's because once we go into there, we can never run out of stock.
Oh.
So we have to have a lot of changes internally to figure out how to make sure they never go out of stock. But then now for me, that's a huge, because I'm the relationship person with all of our accounts, that's a huge battle, because that means I'm pulling some allocations from some of the other stores that have been super, super loyal to us and took a chance. So we're trying to get that figured out, how we want to approach that relationship. And again, it's just an interesting battle that you have to find, because you want to grow, but then you want to take care of the people that have been behind you since day one.
Sure,
absolutely. Yeah. So is there any other, is your limitation just capacity, and when you're, because you're sharing another brew house basically? Yeah,
it's capacity, and to be honest, a big part of the limitation with the cans is because we're still in the shrink sleeve cans versus the printed cans, and the shrink sleeves are 3 times the cost of printed cans. So our margins are really skinny on the can. So we still have to keep a lot of that liquid going into kegs to make up for the cost of package.
Sure. Interesting.
Yeah.
We don't know much about capacity, do we?
We don't have much.
We don't have much capacity.
No, and that's another interesting thing that I didn't really understand. Luckily, I have a couple buddies who do private equity, where they go into companies and model all their stuff, and doing these crazy spreadsheets, and so when we were putting together our financials, our pro forma financials before we opened, and trying to figure all that out, I had a lot of help. But I think one aspect that people don't really realize is the concept of networking capital, where you say, okay, I'm going to go sell this beer for $1 and it cost me 50 cents to make it. So at the end of the day, I'll have 50 cents in the bank. Well, the problem is that 50 cents it cost you to make it, you didn't pay right now. You paid it 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when you were buying the grain, when you were paying for the labor while it was sitting in inventory. And
ordered the cans.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, you're not getting paid for it right now. You're getting paid for it in 30 days when the invoice is due. So all of a sudden you're sitting here, got the cost 2 months ago, you get the payment 30 days in the future. And so, and the thing is that problem never goes away, right? You always have that issue. You're always, and so there with the networking capital, I mean, it's some, you could almost, it's probably about 10 to 15% of your revenue is always just locked up with no access to it, right? And so, so that's also
probably is it even higher now that we're in package?
I mean, it's all really a function of revenue and probably a little bit. I don't know.
It's expensive to package beer.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, but it's worth it, because you reach we launched our package September 21st, 2nd, something like that, and we've reached a completely different demographic and group of people than we had ever reached before.
Yeah, we did a podcast with Franconia, and Dennis stayed out of packaging for a long time.
Yeah.
And he still just does bottles.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't do it for 8-9 years.
Yeah, something like I forget what he said on this.
In you guys' case, it exposed you to a lot of different people. So you got building a good steam in the restaurants and everything, and
it's another branding element too that we've put a lot of value in. So.
And it feeds back into the draft market too, right? So, so it does. It makes it a little bit easier to, when you're not the deep elms or the.
Yeah, I mean, I probably get 1 email a day from a restaurant owner that picked up our cans from Whole Foods or Central Market, and they now want to put us on draft.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it helps in passively in so many different ways that you didn't even think of.
It's interesting.
So, new brew house in West Dallas is coming up. Once the friendly civil battle with the city is over with, what size brew house you gonna have? Or is there any, you've had a couple years of brewing in other places, which I feel like is a pretty good advantage.
Oh yeah.
Walking into it. So, any of those things that you've been able to avoid, kind of designing it, how's that process kind of been for you guys?
Yeah, so we're going with a 30 barrel brew house, just a 2-vessel system. Kind of when we were weighing the ins and outs of everything, that's where we landed. Because a 2-vessel system can be operated with one person if need be. And then we probably put a little bit more emphasis on, I don't want to say automation, because it's a completely manual brew house, but on the grain side, we're going to have a super sack handler, we're going to have a chain and disc auger system. There's a lot of kind of labor reduction things, and it was mostly just because having to do it all the time, and we've worked in multiple different breweries and going, man, lifting 55 pound bags of grain up into this mill. It's no, I'm done with that. So
you see why I don't want to brew?
Yes. I do.
And then we even that, when we were putting it all together, we added a little pickup station because we're putting in a super sack handler. Are you guys familiar with that?
No, huh?
So these big you can buy the grain in the big 2,000 pound sacks.
Oh yeah.
And then, instead of having to do, bag after bag, you just kind of open it up and it weighs it out and everything. And so there's actually an auger that carries that to the mill. And so we added a little pickup station on the floor so that for our specialty grains and things we needed to dump in, we could just, you just dump it right there instead of having to dump it way up higher, climb up on a platform. So I'd say we had quite a bit of focus on kind of just making it an easier, more enjoyable process where we could focus on the things that are important, which is actually making the beer.
Or drinking.
And R&D too, because this becomes a lot of routine, but you want to keep focusing on how to refine things or what's next. So
do you guys plan on having a pilot system when you open up the new place? Or?
Yeah, we have a pilot system now. So we'll is it here?
Well, we have 2 of our fermenters here. Our pilot system is at the warehouse.
How many gallons / barrels is the pilot system?
3 barrels.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's right at, close to 100 gallons. And that's kind of been our process, is that we have a little 10-gallon system. And when we're just starting a recipe, that's basically what we're working on, on that 10-gallon system until we get it where we want it. Sometimes it's 2 rounds, sometimes it's 7 rounds, it just depends. You guys know that. And then we'll move it to the 3-barrel system. And even, I think we've maybe skipped the 3-barrel system once, but
I don't think we have.
We haven't?
No.
But there's a lot of and it's really, I think it's really more the fermentation process than the beer, than the mash and the boil that change with the volume, because that was one of the issues we ran into with Inception, was the fermenters are so tall that it was just taking way too long for the yeast to fall out. Mm-hmm. And we noticed that when we went from 10-gallon to the 3 barrels, the 100-gallon, and we said there's no way we could ever do this beer in a 30 or 60 barrel fermenter. It would take too long to clarify. We'd have to age it, we'd have to bottle condition it, we'd have to do something, right? So you kind of learn those lessons, and you can kind of anticipate what, instead of just going straight from a small batch into the 30 barrel, you can kind of start to see where it's gonna change, or where you're gonna have issues as you scale up. So.
Yeah. And then we're going to have a good sized tap room.
Yeah, so that was my next question.
Yeah.
So you have 3 years without a tap room, 3 years with no tap room to market and sell. Yeah. What are your plans for
it's going to be sexy as hell. Black velvet banquettes and marble and still a lot of concrete.
I'll bring the wife.
Still concrete, but it's going to be a place. And we have a kid. We're right next to Oak Cliff neighborhood. Oak Cliff will sometimes claim West Dallas as being part of Oak Cliff.
Depending on what's there.
Yeah, depending on what's there. Yeah. So the beer garden will be fenced because we understand the importance of having a fence around a yard space. An amphitheater outside, a mini amphitheater.
Oh, so you'll be able to have music and a music venue.
Yeah, and then we'll also most likely open with a restaurant too.
Oh, nice.
A pretty basic restaurant, but yeah.
Do you Any idea of what that is, or kind of don't want to say?
No, we can say. So a good friend of ours owns, I guess it's a concept. I don't know what you call it. Thai fried chicken.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to do most likely a lot of bowls, and then probably a little bit of a swing on the Thai side. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Gotta make sure you have bacon. Beer and bacon go together.
Of course.
Come on, man.
And popcorn. Like I am like every sort of flavored popcorn. Yeah. Yeah.
Was that a joke? Or are you really going to have every single flavor of popcorn?
Well, there'll be like a flavor of the week.
Okay.
Oh no, we
I
make.
just didn't know. I just wanted to make sure I heard that.
No, we make popcorn at home every single day.
That properly.
Flavored bacon with flavored popcorn.
Yes.
What better could it be?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll do that, and then we're going to do a lot of just fun events, things that we've had 3. By then we'll have 3 years to think about it. So. We're calling them Sunday salons at this point. So for those that don't observe a faith that requires you to go to church on Sundays, you can come to the brewery and hear a TED Talk about some sort of science or
TED Talk. That's fantastic.
Something along those lines, because we will have coffee. So we'll be serving black matter and coffee.
Awesome.
You gotta have some place to go ponder after church anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Go
think about everything that was just spoken to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So a tap room that has TED Talks playing on Sunday with coffee and beer. That sounds kind of like I'm in on that.
I was trying to convince her to call it Secular Sunday.
Sure.
But I think it's going to be Sunday Salon.
Yes.
Sunday Salon. I like it. That's good. Well, time to wrap it up. The executive producer / blackberry farmer / creative director says it's time to wrap up. Well, thank you both. Look forward to drinking a lot more of your beer. I know in McKinney they have you guys a choice beverage.
Yeah, they do.
I've seen you there multiple times. You guys kind of all over the Metroplex are now. Anywhere specific people should look for your beer?
Really, anywhere that sells good beer. That's usually a good guarantee. I mean, in your place.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 Cool. Well, I guess that's it. Cheers.
Yeah,
cool.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, you guys.